In 1968, I made a picture that starred one of today's biggest box office names. The movie was called Hercules in New York, and I played opposite a fella they billed as Arnold Strong. Incidentally, our other co-star was Arnold Stang. Well, Arnold Strong went on to become Arnold Schwarzenegger, and the rest is Hollywood history. Right around the same time, there was a group of filmmakers toiling away in Pittsburgh, and they were shooting their first feature film. They titled this maiden effort, Night of the Flesh Eaters. Soon afterwards, the picture was retitled Night of the Living Dead and sent on its merry way to theaters and drive-ins across America. It wasn't their intention at the time, but their little movie became an enormous success story, so rare in the exploitation industry. Directed by George Romero, Night of the Living Dead was scripted by John Russo. Mr. Russo has since written several horror novels and screenplays and continues to produce and direct films. Russell Streiner, who portrayed the role of Johnny and coined the famous line, "They're coming to get you, Barbara," acted as producer on the film. He has since directed and produced movies for the drive-in market like The Booby Hatch and The Devil and Sam Silverstein. Let's take a look at the original preview from Night of the Living Dead.
To a night of total terror. Night of the living dead, the dead who live on living flesh. The dead whose haunted souls hunt the living whose bodies are the only food for these ungodly creatures. Night of the living dead. Bizarre adventure in fear. An experience in shock, more shattering than your strangest nightmare. Night of the living dead. A night with the dead who cannot die. A night of total terror. Night of the living dead.
Russell Streiner and John Russo.
Back in the very early days, I mean, it was brutal. I mean, I don't recall exactly, but I think Latent Image started on something like $600, if I'm not mistaken.
Richard Ritchie loaned you the money.
Mm-hmm.
George thought you wouldn't go along with the idea of making some kind of feature film, and he and I were coming back from lunch with Richard Ritchie, and while we were there, we're eating grilled provolone sandwiches and drinking beer and getting about half loaded probably, and complaining about nobody, you know, all the agencies that we had done jobs for that won awards and had won awards, and we'd done them on low budgets. Then when they get big budgets, they go to New York to get that work done. So I said, well, you know, we have a 35mm camera now. Why don't we each get 10 guys and kick in maybe $600 each, and we'd have $6,000. Could we make any kind of feature film on that? Well, it sounds ridiculous, but for $6,000 at that time, if you shot black and white and edited a black and white 16 work print, you could do something.
$1967.
Yeah. George smacked the table and he said, "We're going to make a movie." Richard thought we were nuts. And then George said, "Russell never go along with it." And I said, "No, Russell go along with it." And we come back and told you the idea. Well, you did get excited, so did Gary. And you started.
Well, it was my role to be sort of the responsible business person while you creative types went and dreamt up. But it did make sense, and obviously A lot of other people thought so, but
But you said, "Oh, we'll never do it on 6." You put some figures together and said, "We have to have 12."
right.
And
Well,
George said, "Oh no, where are we going to get 12?"
that's where the high rolling producer part of me kicks in.